All right, welcome back to the Texas Longhorns Orange Bloods YouTube channel. We are chatting now with David Smoak from Sikkim 365, previewing Baylor and Texas as we go behind enemy lines. And Smokey, I mean, you know Baylor as well as anybody. How surprised are you that this team has won 6 of the 7 football games they played so far?
That was pretty much, and you know this because I've talked to you about this on the Big 12 show. I thought maybe 6 or 7 would be a nice little, get to 6 or 7, get back to a bowl game, kind of like 1-11 to 7-6 under year 2 of Matt Rule.
Right.
Now if they end up with 6 or 7 wins, it's going to be a disappointing season. They have been so much better on offense. The running game it's not even night and day. It's like you can't even explain it. And obviously the defense has a lot of experience and a lot of guys that played on that 2019 team that was so good defensively. I am surprised. I mean, the fans like, what's your cap or what's your ceiling? And there's always going to be a little bit of that. Oh, we're going to win 8, 9, or 10 games. I didn't see that. I didn't. And they've been able to, I don't know if they beat Brigham Young in a non-conference game or can they beat so-and-so and so-and-so. I've been very surprised. It's been a heck of a run so far.
In covering this team like you do, what's been different about Dave Aranda this year?
There's more confidence. He's not going to ever be. He's more Tony Dungy than he's going to be Bill Parcells. That's who he is. I love the fact that that's who he is. When they're not winning, and last year was such a dumpster fire with all the things that everybody had to deal with, not just teams that were young or incoming coaches, first-year coaches. He's not going to change. And he said that to me a long time ago, like one of the maybe first or second games. People, when you lose, they go, well, he doesn't have enough energy. He's not excited enough. He doesn't yell and scream. And then, Tony Dungy was one of those that gave him that kind of advice. Be who you are every single day, whoever you are, be who you are. But you can tell there's a certain confidence in what he did. As soon as last year's season ended and they got destroyed by Oklahoma State, he immediately made the changes at offensive coordinator and with the offensive line coach. I mean, he didn't waste a second. He told me it was hard, part of the business, but what he did immediately was say, we know what the problem is. Let's fix it. And I think that says a lot for a guy. Sometimes because you're quiet, that does not mean you don't have a fire burning inside your chest. And he does.
Yeah, well said. All right, let's start defensively because it's a defensive-minded head coach, very smart defensive coordinator. And, I mean, they have elite players at all 3 levels of their defense. Jaylen Petrie, I think, is arguably the best defensive player in the conference. Terrell Bernard, and then I think the big difference is the LSU transfer, Apu Ika, who's come over in the middle of that defense and just been an absolute stud.
Yeah, you named him. And, safety JT Woods early in the year made a bunch of big plays for them in games that they should have won and in games that perhaps he was the difference in the secondary. That secondary, they got a great amount of speed. They've been hit a few times. I mean, people have beaten them over the top, including Brigham Young a couple of weeks ago. And obviously that's going to be a challenge with Texas and Worthy and what they can do with the deep passing game. This is a team with defensive. I forgot if it might have been, I don't think it was Matt Campbell. I wish I could, it might have been Matt Campbell, but somebody said, we don't remember a team defensively having that kind of speed. And that's a tremendous compliment because the one 2 years ago was phenomenal. But they were also huge as far as big inside, as far as Bravion Roy. And of course, James Lynch was a great player. But we've seen what Ika did and what he brought to the table, the kid from LSU. And he started slowly, Ari. He, it's a couple of times like, where is he? He was suspended for a game because he got in a situation, not a bad deal, but he was caught up in a situation where he was in the wrong place. He shouldn't have been there. And they suspended him for a game. He's immature. Coach, he's even admitted that. And Coach Arad has talked about that, but he started making plays. He deflected a pass in the win against Iowa State that I think led to a pick, a big moment. And I think that kind of helped, he's excitable and he got that motor that sometimes was questioned, but yeah, all of the ones you mentioned. Absolutely. There's guys like Cole Maxwell, a defensive end who's just from Allen High School. We know about their history. He just hasn't done much, but this year, man, the light is on. The clock is ticking for some of these guys. They've had plenty of time. It's time for them to grow up. It's like I asked Aranda Ari early in the year when they lost the game to Oklahoma State. They made some really bad mistakes, made some terrible mistakes penalty-wise and a couple other things. Then I said, isn't it time? You could tell he was on edge. I mean, he could tell he wasn't happy. I said, is it time now for some of these guys you take off the diapers and let them be a big boy? And he kind of admitted, yeah. And I think that's what they've done as well. He's held people accountable for what they do on the field and obviously what he's doing off the field as well.
The Oklahoma State game, the big thing for me on Baylor offensively is there's no reason that, like, Gary Bohannon seems to be a guy that can make some plays with his arm. The Oklahoma State game to me was this great example of they're not trusting him. Like, if they had taken more chances in that game down the field, they might have won it, but they were like willing to go 3 and out by putting him in 3rd and long situations consistently throughout the game. So I don't know what your read is on why they're so kids glove with Gary Bohannon, because it's not like he's incapable. At least that's my vantage point of it.
Well, yeah. And, there was that stat, I think, all the way until maybe it was, I don't know if it was Oklahoma State or whenever West Virginia, whoever, he threw his first pick in the end zone. It was a bad play. He threw it into double coverage. But, it's like, when you hear that stat, it's almost like you need to throw a star. It's kind of like, when you haven't done, throw one. And then you wonder, maybe because he hasn't been able to, like, let it go and throw into maybe some dicey situations. He's got receivers who make the 50-50 plays. Yeah, I think you're right. But, entering this year, Charlie Brewer was really good. Last year, nothing on offense. Charlie wasn't as good. Nothing. You know that. It was awful.
Fedora was just a disaster.
Yeah, it was. It was. And it's a guy who has skins on the wall, but it was a horrible situation. And, but Charlie was great as sophomore and junior year. He's not great. He was really, really good. At times carried them on his back with some things, but the defense in 19, what was the difference? I think that when they entered the year, remember Jacob Zeno, the guy who had the big game at the end, he had threw 2 completions against Oklahoma. Both of them were massive plays and almost won a game against OU in the Big 12 championship game. So everyone was like last year when things struggled. Zeno, they started chanting his name. Charlie Brewer became a polarizing figure. No one ever mentioned Gary Bohannon. Nobody. And all we'd ever really seen of him was on occasion he would run the Wildcat because he's a pretty big guy. And then all of a sudden during the spring, you start seeing and watching that he had more of a command of the offense than Zeno. And I think that everybody rallied around him. Not that they didn't like Jacob, but Gary Bohannon apparently behind the scenes, not because he, was trying to do something he wasn't doing. He normally wouldn't. He was, all in. Every position meeting, he was a part of them. He became the leader of that team. And he had only thrown a handful of passes entering this year. Now he's throwing the ball. He can hit the ball deep. He can throw the hard out. He could throw something slant over the middle. He can run enough to get you a first down. It's been night. No one the offense is night and day, and it's because they can run the football the way they have, the offensive line. But Gary Bohannon's ability to make some of the throws they couldn't make the last year or two has also opened things up as well.
Who do you think wins this game on Saturday?
I was asked by our guys at Sikkim 365, and we've talked about it on the show. I said, in 2019, similar situations, but Texas this year offensively is really good. We know how dynamic they are. I think I would say like 33-27 Baylor. And listen, I picked against them at Iowa State. I picked against them at Oklahoma State. I was right and wrong, but someone's going to take a kick or a punt back for a touchdown. And we know both teams have dynamic return people, right? I mean, both of them dynamic return games. So I don't know who's going to do it, but I think that probably might be the difference in this game. I think Baylor's defense, now UT, maybe they're tired of hearing people talk about them. Had an off week to hear about how bad they are, working on the psyche, as Coach Sarkisian mentioned about finishing a game. I think Baylor's defense is better. It's who creates the turnovers. And I know that's like a kind of a cop-out, but I do believe that Baylor forces turnovers. But UT won that game with TCU forcing turnovers. That was a game that could have gotten away with them with the opening kickoff. But I do think that Baylor probably grabs one more pick or whatever, a strip sack, something like that. And whoever returns a kick or a punt for a touchdown will probably be the difference. I say 33-27.
David Smoak, Sikkim 365. Thank you so much, Smokey. Be well, man.
All right, you too, buddy. Proud of you, man. Keep it going.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.